think the Auditor General has an information to provide, a further information.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With what the PAMSEC has said, with respect that those, even with the one that was obtained, the assignment took place in 2020, if I'm not far from right, because it has to be the expiration of the financial year before the assignment will take place. And from that time now, they give a window, and you are saying you've obtained, even from the letter of acknowledgement is showing 11 September 2019, and the assignment took place in 2020, after the conclusion of this financial year 2019. So if these documents were with you as at that time, there's no reason why you cannot oblige the auditor during the period of the assignment.
Just a moment. Any other member has any comments on that? Can you respond to this, Permanent Secretary? Yes. Can you respond to what the honorable member said and the additional information by the Auditor General?
Yes, sir. Thank you so very much, and let me thank the esteemed member for his contribution. In my response to that, esteemed member, I don't know how it runs in the states, but I will be very clear with how we do it in the federal. Oftentimes, Mr. Minister travels with his aides, and the aides are not civil servants, even though they travel with him. And of course, you know, when a minister is appointed, a specific number of aides are attached to him that can travel with him. So those travels also have to be paid for where they are provided for in the budget. And because these are not civil servants, but aides of the minister, you can't now seek permission for them from the head of service. No.
You are not correct, Mr. Permanent Secretary. That argument can never be sustained.
Let me come here.
Just listen. Just listen. Permanent Secretary, just listen. That argument cannot be sustained. You can't stretch. You can't. I should yield the floor to you. Oh yeah, let me yield the floor to you. I thought you should rather let me make my point.
Sorry.
Put off your microphone. That argument is a plural argument. It doesn't. It can't be sustained by the wildest imagination, because the intent of the circular that requests that civil servants, unless you can prove to us that there is no one out of these persons who made the trip fall within the categories of those covered by approval from the head of service. That is the only way you can extricate them from the approval of the head of service. As long as they are persons employed in the public service of the Federation, the intent of the circular from the head of service that requires that they seek approval before traveling is to ensure that the head of service is on track of every movement out of the Federal Republic of Nigeria by anyone who is a public servant. And then you won't stretch that argument and say, well, because the minister is going, so it has covered everybody. No, you can't. And number two, the second issue also has to do with the date the approvals were sought, the dates that the approvals were purportedly given. And we will also even, I will also be asking you to supply the original copies of the approvals purportedly given post the travel. So now you have the floor.
Honorable Chair, esteemed members, when I said I hadn't finished, I was trying to say that oftentimes when ministers travel with their aides, like I totally agree that I was just asking, why don't we have the list of those that travels? Because that would have just made this easy for you to see that the minister traveled with his personal aides, and the personal aides to Mr. Minister do not require permission of the head of service to travel once he or she gets the permission of Mr. President to travel. That covers the Honorable Minister's personal aides. And where the PAMSEC is leading, that is where the PAMSEC has to also now seek permission from the Office of the Head of Service as it is. And from what you have attached, of the only one that we have an approval for, you will see that the date actually coincides. So what we have here is a request for travel to Addis Ababa on The request was made on the 5th of December 2019 for a travel that was scheduled for 11th and 12th of December 2019. And the approval came out dated 11th December 2019. So I do not see a disparity there. But like I said earlier, it simply means that the day this approval came out, the Honorable Minister will already have undertaken the trip. And which is often the case, because oftentimes due to the quantum of work in the villa, these approvals come afterwards. So Your Excellencies, I agree completely that we should have brought along the list of those that did the travels. And this should have just made this easier for all of us.
This one has restricted. That is the response from the State House. And it was dated December 19, 2019. December 11. Yes, December 11th, 2019. Are you saying it, sir?
Yes.
Can you please read out from the stamp when that letter was received from the, acknowledged from the office of the minister that you have received this letter dated 11? Please let us have the date that is written there.
I see the 12th November 2019.
So the office of the minister received this letter 1 month before it was written. Error where? But from the stamp, the error on stamps would have been a day before. Are you saying the office of the minister did not receive any letter for 1 month?
But the trip itself was in December.
That's what we are saying. I agree with you.
Was made in December.
So
The application,
you
said the application was made on the 11th of December.
No.
I mean,
on the 5th of December.
just a moment. But this response was written by the State House, purportedly written on the 11th of December.
Yes.
And the trip was for 11th and 12th.
Good.
So how was it received?
But you now received it on the 12th
November
of
12th.
November.
And that is why I think that there must have been something wrong with the stamp.
Okay, well, it's your document.
That there
We
should
are
be
not
something
there.
wrong with her.
It's the stamp and the date.
Okay.
Because this cannot be forged, Honorable Chair. The letter can be forged, you can be restricted there.
You cannot say that, Mr. Permanent Secretary. Please, when you come here, we are not jokers here. Please, we are not jokers. On this team, you have forensic experts, you have lawyers, you have accountants, you have people who have worked in the public service for so many years. You can't come and tell me something cannot be forged. What does that mean? What does it mean exactly? What does it mean? There's a document that cannot be forged. What kind of a document is it that cannot be forged? Please don't take our intelligence for granted here. You have a stamp on the letter dated 12. I say it cannot be forged. What cannot be forged? We'll be asking you to provide the original copies of all these letters. We want to have the original copies of all these letters. We'll also be asking, Robert Akiba, you want to say something? Okay, you also need to give us a list of the persons that partook in these travels. The list of persons and the designation of those persons. Honorable Joawu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Permanent Secretary, I just want to ask for a clarification. If the Honorable Minister is traveling and the Permanent Secretary is on that trip, who takes permission? From where and how? If you are traveling with your minister as a Permanent Secretary, is the minister's permission, does it cover you?
It covers.
Covers the PS?
Yes, it covers.
Okay.
No, by virtue of what rule or regulation, that's the issue. Not by virtue of practice. When you say practice, that something has been in practice does not mean it is lawful. So you have to let us know if you affirm that it covers by pursuant to what law or rule, not pursuant to practice.
Either ticketing or whatever the relevancies are, either for ticketing or ESTA codes or what have you. And in this case, this is the same that has been applied here, because on pages 2 to 6, you see that we have attached all applications that went to the villa. And if you're very familiar with the way it works, sometimes approvals come even when you have undertaken the trip and you are back. That is when you see it. A very good example is attached, where we have one of the responses from the villa. It came on the day of the event, which presupposes that the minister and her team were already in Addis Ababa as at that time. So, to a large extent, what will happen where the minister is leading the team is that the required permission or approvals will not come from the office of the head of service, but from the office of Mr. President. And that approval covers the minister and her team, because it is not expected that different approvals will be written. So the approval for whoever is the head of delegation covers the entire team. If it is the minister leading, the minister's approval covers the entire team. If it is the PAMSEC leading, the PAMSEC's approval covers the entire team. So it is when it is the PAMSEC that is leading that such approval is expected to come from the office of the head of service. But when the honorable minister is leading, approvals are sought from the office of Mr. President. And as you can see, we have attached all relevant applications for approvals here, which were duly acknowledged by the office of Mr. President, meaning that these were actually received. And since we are not aware of any queries to the honorable minister throughout that season, it means that all these were approved. And in one of such occasions, we have attached the responses that we can find in our archives that came back from the presidency, which I must say, oftentimes we don't get, because of how, of course, you know how heavy the work is up there. So what is expected is that the approval, application for approval should go in and be acknowledged by oftentimes the office of the chief of staff. And Mr. Chairman and members, we have all those attached in our presentation.
Okay, Permanent Secretary, I think two issues, I can bring out two issues here.
Yes.
The two issues are who is the approving authority for the travel and whether the approval was given at all. Those are the two issues. Who is supposed to give the approval? Now, before I ask for comment, I just want to ask the Accountant General, how many persons are involved in this trip? Huh? Use your microphone.
5.
5?
Yes, sir.
The Permanent Secretary, the Minister,
and 4 others.
And 4 others.
Those 4 others are public servants, civil servants?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so the argument of the Permanent Secretary is that the approval given to the Minister covers everyone on our entourage. That's his argument.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Honorable Akiosi.
Mr. Chairman, my respected colleagues, Mr. PSR.
Yes, sir.
Right, that your argument is a personal argument. It is not anywhere in the laws. Most of us that are here have served in states as commissioners before. I've been commissioner since 2007 till 2022. Right, and there is nowhere that approvals such as this will be given blankets. The approval of the Honorable Minister will come from the office of Mr. President. The approval of the civil servants come from the office of the head of service. And that is why we have the separation of powers. So that is one. Also, what you have here, sir, all these letters that has been written, out of about 4 or 5 letters, it is only one that has approval. So it is safe to say that the other 3 travels are done without approval, because there are no approvals here. And you know what we are talking about here is 2019.
We all know what obtains. When the minister is traveling and he obtains approval, let's just take for an example now, if we write 2 letters, minister writes to Mr. President, the PAMSEC writes to the head of service, and for whatever reason, minister has to travel and then he gets his approval, and that of the PAMSEC is not out yet. Do we now say the PAMSEC will not travel with Mr.
How does that answer the question?
No, we're talking about practice here.
Don't talk about practice. Talk about the rules. Talk about the laws. When you talk about practice, anybody can do anything, and you say, oh, that's what they do. That's what they do does not answer the question of what should be done. So I'm asking, pursuant to what rules or regulations does an approval given to a honorable minister cover someone who is employed in the public service of the Federation? You supply us with those rules or regulations or laws In addition to the original copies of these letters and a list of the persons involved in the travel, as well as the payment vouchers for the trip. I hope somebody's taking note for you. Okay. Yes, Honorable Olumide Oshola.
Thank you, Chairman. And when they are paid the extra codes, they are going to be paid in Naira with a particular exchange rate. What account is usually used to pay those aids to the minister, since they are not captured in the civil service? And how are those payments for the extra codes made? Yes, how are they made?
With your kind permission, Mr. Chair, let the DFA answer the questions, if you will permit me. DFA, please.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Chair, honorable members, I want to answer that question directly by saying that in a situation whereby payment has to be made to the aides who are accompanying the minister for a foreign trip, and they are not captured in the GIFMIS database of the ministry. Usually, the remittance is made to anybody on the trip or an accountant in the CPO who is captured on the database of GIFMIS for onward transfer to the beneficiaries. Thank you.
So now, the reason why I asked that is, could you please furnish this committee the details of that particular individual and the payment made into his account for those aids of the minister for that particular trip?
Chairman. Okay, Chairman, thank you. Chairman, okay, I'm thinking in addition to a few documents that you want the ministry to furnish this committee, I'm also thinking that it would be appropriate that the international passports of those people that travel within that period should also be made available to the exactly. They should be made available to the committee.
I'm sorry, Honorable colleague.
Okay, I was saying that in addition to a few documents that he asked that he should furnish this committee,
yes,
that the international passports of the people, stamp of exit and entry, it should also be made available to.
Okay, my only concern is that these people are people. 2018 was when the trip happened. I don't know whether they will still have access to the international passport.
What I requested was that...
I don't know whether I get the Honorable Akiba.
Chairman, while you were a bit, I requested that the particular civil servant that they will pay the lump sum into his account, they should furnish us the details of that remittance into his account for that particular travel. Because said that whenever aides of the minister are traveling, they pay the lump sum into a particular account of a civil servant for them, and it now does an onward transfer to those aides.
Yeah, but we don't even know the list. We have asked them to provide the list of those who made the trip.
That will now allow us to...
Okay, but you said there are how many people on the 5 people? The minister and 4 others. Okay, so you take note of all the additional documentation. I agree with you, sir. The additional documentation that we've got to get to this matter. And Permanent Secretary, before we decide, I want to say when we sit down here based on the mandates you have given us as Nigerians. We do not intend for any reason to witch hunt anyone. We just intend to make our country better. And countries are made better when there is adherence to laws, to rules, to regulations, to best practices. Those are the things that make countries, worthwhile. So whenever we sit here, we have those things at the back of our mind. So I wanted to be very sure. You were not the permanent secretary in office then, but because you inherit both liabilities and assets, whatever happened that time that we asked questions for, you provide answers to them. And where you do not have answers to them, The rule also allows us to call those who were occupants of the office as at the time of the alleged infraction to come and explain. We may look at the sum of money as how much is it, 34 million naira, whatever. Yeah, 34 million naira can do about 3 or 4 boreholes and provide water for people in one village in Nigeria. So there's no money that is actually too small, to track. And we want to be sure that we are working in accordance with the rules and regulations and laws of this country. I just want to give you that assurance that this has nothing to do with any attempt to witch hunt anyone or to put anyone under any undue pressure. So we will expect you to provide those additional documents, and then we'll provide you with a new date to come and speak to those documents. So those documents that will require, we expect you to provide them So provide us with all those documents in a written form and duly signed by you, and submit latest by Monday, 19th of February, 2024. And then when you are coming next for the next date of appearance, bring along original copies of all the correspondence between your ministry and the State House, as well as the responses thereto.